Good morning from Southern California here in the United States. This is Bob Paste. I'm your host for a show titled The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. And this is a live broadcast that is through Facebook, and we're using YouTube to broadcast it. And so, it being a live voice there. There's several ways you can react with this show. First of all, for somebody that may not know what CPS stands for, it stands for Child Protection Services. It's a branch of social services that's supposed to protect our children. And if there's hiccups uh, and the children are in danger, they will intervene. They're also supposed to do what's called family reunification. I mean, it's always best to keep the family together as much as possible. And in the short term, while the correction measures are being taken place, to bring them back together. We'll talk more about that in the show. I'd like to give you some numbers to call in and so forth. The first number is 888 That's 888 That is a number to my office. And the person that is sponsoring this show is Vincent W. Davis. He is a family law professional attorney, and he has years of experience with family matters and working to fight CPS and bring the children back. Also, he can do uh, lawsuits against CPS, civil lawsuits. He works primarily in Southern California, but he goes to Northern California, and he has in other states. This past week, he was in Oklahoma. So um, he is an excellent attorney. You probably say, well, why do I want to have an attorney? Well, you're in an area that is going to be very unsettling to you, and you need someone to navigate and that knows the laws and knows the ways to work. I mean, there are things like what is a 388 um, petition and so forth. I'm not a lawyer. I'm only speaking from my involvement with CPS from 2015, and the case ended in 2017. And then since that time, I'm still affected by my involvement in CPS. Yes, it was a bad experience. Yes, it was negative. And mine was different, like yours is probably different. We all have it different there. But I've yet to really meet anybody that has a successful story with their involvement with CPS. And I'm talking about hundreds of people across the country I've talked to that have been live on this show. Now, Vincent Davis will give you a 30-minute up to an hour free consultation about the strategies of how to fight CPS and win. And if you like what he has to say, you should retain him. He's an excellent attorney, and he will get your kids back. One thing they keep in mind is that if you don't do an attorney or you use the public defenders that CPS gives you, you'll end up having maybe 5 minutes uh, with that attorney because he has 20 cases on his workload. He or she is not for your best interests. So it's important that you find an attorney that can help you because you have to navigate the laws and know how to go through things. And again, attorneys, there are a dime a dozen, but the good ones are far and few. And Vincent Davis is one of those. So uh, that number 888 can also be used to call in to be a guest on the show. Every day we have different guests from around the country. They can be grandparents, they can be partners, husband, wife. Today we had one scheduled that was actually a couple, but apparently something came up. It is hard to talk on the show. It's hard to uh, hold back your emotions. It's a very emotional upheaval when your life is suddenly thrown upside down. And the involvement with CPS does that for you. The other aspect, social services, they're supposed to sit there also to help you, assist you with food, and they give out food. They will help you out with housing. They will help you out with medical, those kinds of things. They are supposed to help you with everything. It's a federal organization and it's mandated in every state, so it's federal and state run. And so They get a lot of funds to help out with these matters. The problem being is that um, how those funds are used, I will talk further in the show. Now, there's another number besides the 888-888-6582 that you can call in. Make sure you mention my name, by the way. My name is Bob Pace, so make sure you mention that. There's a radio show called Block Talk Radio. And what it is that you can call this number that just appeared on your screen, 563-999-3480. That's 563-999-3480. That number connects you with my phone. And that way, if you want to talk right now, you can call that number and I'll connect you with the show. So that's the second way of how to talk on the show. A third way is you can text me a message. I'll read it. You can put your name and state and say what you want to ask a question or you want to comment on something I'm talking about. You can do so. Okay, so that is really important. So that is another way you can talk about it. Okay, now usually when I don't have a guest, I usually talk about my experiences, which may be getting kind of old because a lot of people have heard them. I also um, recommend. I just had something here. Feedback. Okay. I also not recommend, but I also have topics, and I had speaking with various topics. There's one topic that I like to revisit again, and this pertains to uh, uh, Native Indian children. Now, a child is defined as anybody under 18 years of age. CPS gets involved with children less than 18 years of age. And so the reason why I brought this up, that there's this Indian Child Welfare Act that was passed in 1979. And this act basically says that if an Indian child is in a CPS case, then the CPS have to turn them over to the tribe if the tribe wants to intervene or help. And the reason why I bring that all up, because my children, um, I am part Lakota Sioux. One of my biggest problems is that getting me registered. You can either be registered or could be registered, but you have to be either one of those two for it to work. This ICWA, which sometimes is referred to, um, is a place where the Indian tribe will intervene and they will make sure that your child is placed with other family members or stay in the home. Problem with CPS that I find out is that they want to take your children right away and they want to say there's extreme things going on and so forth. So make sure you explore that because I tried to, but the CPS workers lied and did not do their good efforts to do diligently. I even talked to the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, did some research at the Lakota University online through them, and tried to find out my great grandmother is a full blooded Lakota Sioux. My grandfather was Norwegian. He was from Norway, from Bergen, Norway, and uh, so his bloodline traces back to the days of the Vikings. So I had a very interesting bloodline, and so I wanted to get my children helped out by them because what was happening was the CPS right away are using deception and they're not very transparent. That's one thing that you'll find out about the CPS. Um, I'm speaking primarily from my involvement and from everybody else I've been hearing is that they'll lie and do anything they do. And one of the things they use deception with me is something that is when the allegations come in. Now, CPS by law has to answer any allegations that come in by professionals or even by family members. My problem is on my wife's side, I did not know that the family was trying to disrupt our family and take our children away. And you're probably wondering, whoa, why is that happening? Well, I was going through some hard times back in 2010, and I don't want to get into details about that, but financially I'd lost my job. And so trying to maintain my lifestyle, which was a well-to-do lifestyle, it was an excellent lifestyle. I had a super home, new. It wasn't that old. The home was built with high voltage ceilings. It was in a private neighborhood close to the beach, and it had a bedroom for each of our children. And at that time, our family had 6 children, and I've had 2 wives, two marriages. While my older kids are done quite well in life, the 3 older ones um, were out on their own when this incident was taking place. One had just left at age 25, a year before this event occurred to me. So I had my 3 young ones, and that was with my second wife. And the 3 young ones at the time were 9 and 12 and 15. They were really very studious children. We had them in the best schools that we thought. Our older one was a son. He's was going to a private school, and he was pursuing. He wanted to go to college and be a robotic engineer, and we wanted him at a private school where they give a STEM engineering, STEM I should say STEM engineering, but um, STEM track to learn. And what STEM stands for, somebody that don't understand or saying. S is for science, so they have to take a science class, and that's usually biology, marine biology. It can also be physics and chemistry, and so forth. My son ended up taking biology and chemistry and physics. The other, the the T stands for technology, and that could be classes like statistics or engineering, like robotic and stuff like that. E is engineering. That leads me into robotics. They take a technology class, engineering class, a science class. The last one is a math class. And at the high school he's going to, they are already into calculus. They start you off um, with algebra in middle school, and you have pre-algebra and algebra, and then by the time you get to high school, you're already into geometry, and then pre-calculus and calculus, and so forth. So my 3 children, my daughter was at a middle school, and she was doing okay. At the time of the incident, though, she was experiencing some drama, and what it was is that the kids were making fun of her and so forth, and teasing her, and the school wasn't very receptive of how to deal with that, and it got so bad with her on that. My youngest son, he was a refreshing kind of guy. I mean, he was a go getter. He was in elementary school in the 5th grade, and he was excited because he loved his family. And all my children love their mother and father. They were very loving, giving children, and we had no severe discipline problems. They had good manners, and we did a lot of things as a family. We went camping and traveled to other countries. We had season passes to Disneyland because my job afforded that. Well, when I lost my job in 2010, I was 65 at the time. And, um, excuse me, I was 60 at the time. And they said, you're going to have a hard time getting a job. I said, no, I'll get a job. And I tried the first couple of years. So things were kind of tough because we had to stop our Disney passes. We had to stop doing a lot of the traveling and so forth. But we still tried to have a good family outings. One thing that was really a lot of fun is my kids were very involved in scouting. Um, both my boys in Cub Scouting, and then my son was in Boy Scouts, which is now called Scouting because they've allowed girls in there. My girl was in Girl Scouts, and then they had a sport, and they loved to play soccer. All 3 of them played soccer and excelled in it. So there was those activities. Also, we were very involved as parents in school. So I cannot relate or this should have been brought into CPS courts, but it never was. The problem being is that because I lost my job, it had a ripple effect. And so suddenly I'm without income, and I had really hefty mortgage payments I have to pay, like 5,000 a month, and property taxes of 12,000 a year. So I had some major expenses because I had a home that was well to do. I mean, it was a beautiful home. It had a swimming pool with a walk-in pool, a jacuzzi, English garden, tropical. I mean, it was really great, and we uh, had a very loving, caring family. Well, what was happening was the my wife's family, and I did not know this. They were doing something called alienation. Now, you're probably wondering what alienation. Now, that's something that um, uh, let me see here. It's alienation, and alienation. You probably wonder what the word means. It means to separate two parties. Now, those people could be parenting alienation, which is a lot of times where the parents will pit each other, and they will um, have one parent against the other parent, trying to make the child try to pick the parents, and that's wrong. That's the problem about alienation. There's also family alienation, where a family will intervene and try to alienate the children from the mother and father. There's also CPS alienation. You know, it's really funny. The word alienation thinks primarily about the parent, but I've found out from talking to these shows that it could mean alienation by a family member. It could be alienation by a family. It could be alienation by CPS, who sits there and pits and tells stuff that isn't true to your children. Um, Alienation is really important when parents separate, and that's another thing. We were not separated at the time. We're still not separated. We've been together for 30 years, and so it's really strange because usually CPS matters involve when children are neglected or abused. Those are the two things that CPS looks at: neglect and abuse. And there's different variations of neglect and abuse. And what I mean by that is that CPS is, by law, supposed to protect our children. And so when they receive allegations, and this is what they're receiving, and some of these allegations early on were like, we were not paying for the electric bill or the gas bill or the water bill. The kids were not wearing clean clothes. They weren't going to go to school. Uh, they were saying all kinds of things that are untrue. The problem is that CPS, right away, these allegations are considered to be true. They don't even have to be proven true. They just be allegations are true. So you are guilty right away, and you have to prove your innocence. Where most courts of law and everything, you are innocent to proven guilty. Courts do their most to protect a person that may have committed a crime and keep them innocent. And there's protection measures. In CPS, you'll find out there's nothing protecting you. There's nothing. They assume. And that's a wrong thing to think about, because assume is really make an assumption. You are endangering a perfectly functional family. Yes, my hiccup was I lost a job and I was trying to get a job. At 65 is when the CPS case started on me. But for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015, there was constant harassment by them. I refused to let them in my house. I knew better. I did not know the law about that, by the way. They need a court order, or they can use assumption like extreme, and they can get the police, the local police involved. And if they get the local police involved, it really gets scary, especially if they make up stories. So, um, as you listen to me talking here, I don't know if this applies to you or not, but if it does, you can text in. Um, Also, everybody has their own story, their own thing. Some people, um, I've heard stories that they were doing drugs, and because they're doing drugs, and then they stayed off it, they lose their children. One child gets placed with another parent, so forth like that. The idea is to keep together in there. But not only was my loss of a job affecting our lives at that time because of lack of income, there isn't too many people that want to help out people that uh, are very wealthy and they serve as the hard times. I had saved money, by the way, for this kind of rainy day, and I was able to use that money for 5 years. Unfortunately, through another disaster, is that my money was invested in stocks and bonds by our company. They had a committee, and that company very poorly put in it because the banks failed in 2007, and the market dropped. And that was all because of predator loans. And I had a predator loan because I should never have been in the house that I was in. And what a predator loan is when a lender adjusts your income for the sole gain of getting bonuses for refinancing or financing. You see, there was this period of time where lenders and the people giving out loans were making gobs of money by refinancing, and because the rates were so low. When you're down at 2%, there's a lot of front. And the banks, and I hate to say the banks, if any banks listen, you're stupid. And I knew one bank very personal. I knew the CEO of the bank. And that's one bank that didn't fail, but you give out loans to everybody that doesn't really qualify. All you do is do failures. Now, they did a thing with me too. They said, oh, we'll give you a credit line. Now, when you borrow a loan, you don't think of a credit line. But they said, oh, you need that credit line to take care of some rainy day events. And as long as you don't use it, you're not paying any interest on it. But it's very easy to look at it because you sit there and say, oh, I want to buy this from a family. I want to go on this trip. I want to go that. So you end up using a credit line. It's a trick of their play here. So with a predatory loan, they are a bad scene. They are so bad. So here it is. I lose half of my retirement. I've been working for 40 some years. I lose half of my retirement. And but I was able to stretch it uh, for 2017 is when I lost it. For 7 years, I was able to live in my home to where I had to sell it. And I had to sell it of getting money to help me with my CPS to get my family back together. You know, here's a family struggling. Not once did CPS ever offer, hey, we'll help you out with what you need. No, they don't. It's like you had to ask for a bus pass. You had to ask for things that they their interest is to make money. And you say, well, how can CPS make money? Well, CPS makes money by keeping your children in the system, by having your children in group homes and in foster care. They don't like the idea of family members with the children, things like that, because they get funding from the federal government and from the state. So they get lots of money. And in my case, the agency that where I was working at was in Orange County, and they have a Taj Mahal of a building, meaning that this building is insanely wealthy, and only the management works over there. Their workers work over in other buildings that aren't as fancy and so forth there. Also, I found out that CPS gives out bonuses to workers. Also, there's a period of time, and the reason, by the way, I lost my job is because at that time California was going bankrupt in 2010, and they needed to get money. And one of the things they did besides my contracts, I worked in construction, they give me IOUs. And of course, going to lenders like banks, they weren't going to help you out with an IOU with a credit line because they were stung by the predator loan cycle. So I couldn't get going. And so that's the reason why I lost my job, is the owner couldn't afford to keep me going without the money coming in. I had the money there. I had the money. I had lots of money there and civil highway and heavy engineering. But um, the social workers was another area that the governor was cutting back there. Uh, and why would he affect the social? Well, social workers back in 2010 were paid very nicely. They definitely had a good salary. They could make a good living off the salary. but they were experienced. Oh, we got a question. Orange County discriminated against my family. They straight away ran my family out of town and held their right hostages in counties until they left. Yes, Orange County did do that. I know that there's another name from CPS, DSS, and so forth. There, the person that just texted a message. I'm sorry they ran you out of your home and stuff. As you see, I'm still not hearing a good story about CPS. And if you want to be a guest show, please call in and or call in right now. You can talk about your matter. I'd love to have someone else talk besides myself. Anyway, we had someone just text in how CPS ran them out of town and destroyed their family. You see, the goal should be with CPS is not destroy a family, especially a family that was functional. And yes, people sometimes have hiccups. If they do drugs, you're not allowed to do drugs with children under the age of 18. So you got to stay away from drugs. And marijuana is a real tricky one because some of its medicinal use is legal. Other states have different rules about it. This person calls in. I hate foster care. I called ES because I don't know them as CPS, but my building acronym. Yeah, it's fine. CPS is Child Protection Services. DSS is Department of Social Services. It's it's whether the acronym is there's other ones called too. So I'm sorry they did that. And the thing is that you need a attorney, and that was my mistake. When I had lost my job and I was struggling and so forth, um, and trying to get a job at in my 60s, my parents were uh, ailing; they were dying, and I had to deal with that matter on top of no money, on top of a family and stuff like that. And my relatives, my sisters, my family, one was retired up north, couldn't really do much help, and the other one was in the islands, and she did fly a lot to do it, and she was an advocate there. But my mom and dad, had lived a beautiful life. They had a beautiful home. They wanted to sell it, and they wanted all their belongings. Well, my mistake was accept the task, and so my youngest daughter and I drove a U-Haul truck up to their home and packed all the things that they wanted to give to family relatives and to me, and I put them in the U-Haul truck. It was a big truck, a big full load. So you can imagine that full of things. And of course, I take the things back to my home, and I thought I could put it temporary on the apron after loaded out of the U-Haul truck and not have to put it into storage because I couldn't afford the storage. Because that was a mistake. I should have put it into storage somehow. I don't know how I would, but you need money to do storage. And so um, I got my parents' belongings and so forth. So now we have him on the apron, and what happened is that someone complained, and the CCRs, which are the rules that govern the private community living there, don't allow you to store things, even though it was professionally wrapped with tarps and looked not unsightly. Their interpretation was you can't do that, you can't have that. So I had to move it in. Um, okay, we have a call come in. All right. Hello, are you there?
Hi, Mr. Pace.
Yes, hello. I'm going to put you live on the show. Go ahead. What is your first name and what state are you from?
My name is Hunter, and I am from North Carolina.
Okay, glad to
Um,
meet you, Hunter. You
I
want to share your story?
some of it, I've got a bit of a gag order on me, refraining me from speaking on some, but that is illegal in a month. How you were talking about how you couldn't afford the storage building. Part of the whole goal of CPS is to isolate each parent and then to financially devastate them until they can no longer afford to fight. Yes, maybe you can afford a lawyer today, but in 6 weeks or 6 months, you're going to run out of money, and their whole goal is to get it where you're broke, hopeless, and homeless.
So true. So true. Were your allegations? I mean,
Also,
what was your allegations?
I had an entire smattering of allegations. Most of them being so far from being realistic, it's unreal. Everything from making the children eat carpet to locking them in a room that had no door on it. Um, some very heinous things, but all of them was untrue. All of them was verifiably untrue. I don't know how a human being can eat carpet. We're not goats. We don't have the stomachs for it. We don't have the teeth for it. And how can you lock someone in a room that has no door?
Good points. Was this by family members that were trying to report this, or did you find out who reported it?
An estranged ex. I was considered the step parent in this relationship, but the estranged ex used it as a custody boy.
Well, they're doing what's called alienation, and it's parenting alienation, and it goes through when people are either breaking up or no longer have, and one parent will pit the other parent to look bad and make up stories like that. And by law, they have to respond. The problem is the allegations are considered true until you prove them that they're not, and that involves you to go to the court, and they make the court so difficult. Did you have a public defender?
I did have a public defender. As a matter of fact, I had about 40 different public defenders, and 39 of them actually recused.
Wow.
Or conflicted out, should I say.
Wow. Hold on 1 second. I need to make a announcement during this show. To all you listeners out there, we have a guest speaker talking from North Carolina, and he is talking about his involvement with CPS and hopefully share some light to help you all that are listening. There are several ways that you can reach out in the show. One way to call in is to be a guest speaker and officially set up a time is call my office. It's 888-888-6582. And you can schedule an appointment, say to the office that you spoke to Bob Pace, and they'll schedule you a time when you can do it. Another way, which this gentleman used, is our Block Talk Radio, and it's 563-999-3480. And that's if you can call in live and so forth. And we have someone that wants the talk. Now, I'm also hosted by an attorney called Vincent W. Davis. He is a very experienced family law attorney, a trial attorney, and he offers a 30-minute to 1 hour strategy session of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. If you like them, you can retain them. There's no obligation to retain them. But as you find out, this gentleman said he went through 40, public defenders, and 39 of them turned out to be sour. I went through 5 of them, and none of them did anything good. I finally had to get Vincent Davis involved to help me, and that took selling my home and all my belongings, everything. I am fully bankrupt. I'm still hurting as it is 9 years later. This is totally archaic. But anyway, please call in 888-888-6582 and schedule a time with Vincent Davis. Okay, you go ahead from North Carolina, and let's talk more about your spouse. Were you guys going through a divorce, or were you partners? Were you married?
It wasn't my ex. It was my, at the time, fiance's ex. And he was using that as a custody ploy, as a way of playing keep away and taking the children from her, with, like I said, extremely outrageous claims.
So your fiance was a woman that you're going to plan to marry, and she had her children with this guy, and this guy was trying to alienate you from her and her children, trying to get okay. Now, did that get brought up, or what finally became of that?
It was argued, and it was actually admitted that he was the one that filed the report, but nothing ever came of it. And here's where the story gets a lot more complicated, because I'm a second-generation foster care child. My mother was in foster care, and now my children are in foster care, and it's extremely convenient for them when you was in foster care, for them to say, oh, well, you was in foster care, so you're damaged goods because stuff happened to you or stuff was said to have happened to you. You don't have good, strong family bonds. You don't have a family to turn to. And they'll take and use anything they can to use against you, even though, like, when you're in foster care, you're technically a minor, and your case is supposed to be sealed when you age out. Now, if you happen to be unfortunate enough to live in the area where you grew up, then what they will do is they will they'll hold that against you. They'll like I said, they'll say that you're damaged goods and you can't raise a child because you wasn't raised right, even though they was the one that chose how your upbringing was controlled.
Wow. So you had children with your fiance too. So she had two sets of children. Is that what it was?
Yes, sir. So not only was the children between them two took away, but because he took and played keep away with my fiance's children, it got our children caught up in the mix, and then poof, all the children are gone.
Oh boy! Now, did at first they put them with in a shelter, or did they take them right away, or how did they take them?
They left. He picked them up for a visit, and then when it was time for him to come back, he said, "Oh, I'm back," and then he called and made a report. And his basis for not complying with the custody order was, well, there's an open case, and that he didn't have to give them back. So a couple weeks go by. Actually, the visit was on Christmas. They didn't take our children until February.
Wow. And
but
it was strictly a vindictive measure by him.
Yes.
Wow.
And he had never been inside the home. He had never seen the home. And as a matter of fact, he hadn't seen his children for over 6 months prior to this one visit. And then out of the blue, he just picks them up, and this was his way of getting out of paying child support. And when he got the children in his care and custody, he gave them to a relative, and they've been there ever since. So part of the reason why I was wanting to call into the show was to try to encourage other foster care survivors to please come forward. Please share your stories, because the more people speak up and speak out, the more of this darkness we bring to light, and the more light we shine on it, the farther it's going to slink into the dark.
Now, you were a foster child. What was your experience in foster care?
I was tossed from home to home. Out of three homes that I was placed in, I was placed in 6 different placements. 3 of them homes, 3 of them in group homes or shelter type places. Only one of those places was any count. Only one of them was good.
Did you get abused or neglected?
I was actually abused by a school teacher in a way that is really improper. And they actually brought that up in my custody battle. They're stating that, oh, well, you was abused as a kid, so you're more likely to abuse your kids, even though I was abused while in foster care. I was actually told to kill myself by one of the foster parents, and then given the tools to do so with.
Wow. And did you try to report this to anybody in the, I guess you call your outfit DDS. Did you try to report it to DDS?
I did report it to my worker because I was immediately removed. Part of the big blow-up was that they was removing me from the home, and the social worker was on the way, either before or after I was told to off myself and given the tool to do so. But either way, shortly thereafter, within an hour or two, the social worker showed up and moved me from one place to the other. And I understand that everyone else knows them as CPS or DCYF, but because, like I said, when I was a kid, they didn't say it was CPS or the foster care placement permanency team. I kept seeing the building, and every time I'd hear them announce who they was, or when they was making a phone call, hi, this is such and such from DSS. That's why I've always referred to them as DSS.
Right.
I've actually called into the show before. I've spoke with Miss Georgette, and I've spoke with Mr. Davis.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to advocate for more survivors to come forward with their stories, because back when I was in care a little over a decade ago, there's still people that I cannot find to this day. I have their names, I have their Facebooks. Like, I was in communication with them for 3 to 5 years down the road.
These are other foster children then. Right. These are other foster children, right?
Yes, they actually, every 6 months, there was a big gathering for all the foster care children. It was pretty much where they gave out socks and underwear, and they called it like a punch social. Well, a bunch of us, we would, have hidden cell phones, or we would have hidden Facebooks. We'd get on Facebook on someone else's phone at school. And so we stayed in touch with some of them. I mean, I was a young man, and I was kind of being flirty with one of the girls. Well, one day she just up and disappeared, and I don't know whether she died or went missing, but I know she didn't age out. It wasn't time for her to age out.
She may have been involved in the slave trade. I mean, there's another part that people don't aware of, is that children are sold into slavery, whether for sex or for working in other countries. And I live in an area where it's the number one spot to kidnap children because it's a high income area. And, the bottom line is, you probably found out, it's money. They give money up to a child is 18, and it's a lot of money. It isn't the money to make their needs meet. You mentioned something about a sock social. It's really funny because my son, who was in foster care for a short time, they bought him 100 pairs of socks. And my son says, what am I going to do with 100 pairs of socks? They had to use up the money or something, or they'd have to give it back. And there's so much of foster care. There is a need for foster care. There are usually parents that can't have children that like to have children. I've yet to meet a good foster care family. I've yet to hear good success stories in foster care, because a lot of the people on the show that I've been talking to are former foster care themselves. One girl was abused sexually through foster care, and she's a remarkable woman in here. She talked about her experience in foster care and how they were doing something similar to her kids. And it's really sad because the idea of foster care is posed to make it a family where a mother and father are not able to take care of them or don't want to take care of them. Now, I've not met any parents yet that say, I don't want my children. I do not want to be a father. I don't want to be a mother. Yes, there's been cases where there's separation and so forth in there, but most of the time, parents want their children. Parents want a family. That's why they had children. I never heard anybody that hated a child or something like that. I've not met that. But there are those horror stories out there. There's parents, they get upset and slam their children against walls. Yes, there is a need for protection. There's a need, but the problem is the protection has gone overboard, and they treat everybody the same. And each person should be treated separately and differently. Everybody has his own needs. If you are, strung out in drugs all the time, you can be cured, you can be helped. It's things like that. But during the process, the child should be safely put and maybe have the visitation with the mother or something like that. But it sounds like your experience in foster care was not a happy one. And now you have people that you were family members with have disappeared. And I really wonder about that. I think that people say that CPS is the number one agency for the slave trade with children, for taking away children. And they really are. They're very, very abusive. And this comes from me dealing with the top guy in my area. There's a Taj Mahal, and I met the top dog. I tried to talk to him sensibly because I'm one of those people I can interface with a CEO. I have no problem talking to anybody. And I have no problem what level they're on. I can be on the same level. Well, this guy did listen. He did talk, but he went in one ear, went out the other ear, because they're at a thing where, well, you don't like it, change the system. Well, then you got to fight. Not only do you have to fight a bad agency, you got to change the laws, how CPS operates. One thing with allegations, we should put in writing the allegation and sign your name. That doesn't mean it has to be given out, but if you're serious enough about the allegation, you write it. Now, most people will not write something down if they know the allegation is not true. Why? That can be used against them in a court of law. I mean, if it's found to be untrue, because they're admitting to something in there. So people very easily can call a phone and say anything they want. They're hidden because the phones are not two-way phone calls. So when they call in, and in my case, my wife's family members was calling with ridiculous stories, like you say, eating a carpet and stuff like that. That is wrong. They were calling it was all kinds of things. Why? They weren't trying to help us out when we were going through financial hardships. They weren't trying to help out because we were losing our family members and we need to take care of them. I mean, my idea is that I had a perfectly functional family with students that, with children that did well, and then my older children are doing well, today. But now, my three younger children, it's still messed up. Our youngest daughter divorced, was convinced by CPS to divorce their parents and change the name and stuff, and she's miserable. She still stays in touch with her brothers at my encouragement, but she had to divorce her brothers. So it is tough out there. Now, you say that you met this woman. She's your fiance, so you're not married yet, right?
No, this was a couple of years ago. We actually got married.
Oh,
We
okay.
actually got our kids back.
Okay, so you did. That's a success story. Can you share with the listeners how you got your kids back?
There was somewhere along the lines of meeting them in the middle and giving them what they want, but there was also a lot of not backing down, a lot of raising HELL. We recorded every visit, every interaction. We caught them in every lie. Not that it went very far. We finally got in front of a judge, and one of the lies came out, and the judge had made he'd signed an order the day before, and then they entered in their evidence, and he found out that it was contradictory to what they had told him the day before, and he, not literally, but he figuratively threw the book at them because he caught them in a lie. And it didn't matter how many times we told the judge that they was lying, and we could prove it, he didn't want to hear it until they proved it with their own evidence. But we did 90% of the services they wanted. We did 90% of the plan that they forced us to agree to under duress, which is, a violation of contract law. There was one service that I got kicked out of, and that was the only thing that we did not complete, but everything else was done the way that they had wanted it to. And then the thing is, this was all happening during the time of COVID. Everyone else that did not know how to fight or argue or be relentless, their visitation got switched to video visitation or over the phone visitation. And because we had a current court order from the judge, we held them to their end of the bargain where it says 1 hour a week in person, face to face. And from our understanding, we were the only ones, because we were the only ones fighting. Like everyone else was just complying. They wasn't fighting, they wasn't arguing, they wasn't rebutting or trying to refute anything that was being said. And honestly, I'm afraid that we paid for them a whole brand new building, because after our children came home, the very next time we heard from DSS, they had a whole new building.
Oh, yeah.
New building, a yard full of brand new cars.
And, yeah. Were your social workers, right, I was curious, were your social workers young or old?
There was a couple of old ones. Some of them was actually my foster care workers.
Okay. Because in California,
I know they had.
Yeah, I was going to say, in California, they got rid of our experienced social workers and put in the young ones that are like 22, 23 that weren't married, that didn't know anything about families, and then they're making life-threatening decisions for your family based on these young workers that were being, coached by bonuses for Gucci purses and for BMW cars and so forth. And I'm not trying to promote those products, but I'm trying to give the highlight. Is that what a bonus? That's what they're working for. They're not working because they want to help families or they want to help children. See, that the problem is the CPS has lost its theme, family reunification. They're not family reunification, and they're going to make your life, as you say, hell. And it was like with me. I 100% did everything they asked. The only difference is I fought every step of the way through emails and through discussions and talks and everything, because in our courts in California, in family law, they don't allow you into court to hear what goes on. They only bring you in for 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, this is what decided upon. Do you agree as parents sign here? And so if we were sitting in the peanut gallery, sitting in there in the courtroom, it'd be great. They're not transparent. And also the judges, I'm afraid, they're elected judges. And I want to do a pitch about everybody with elections. Not only are we electing a president, we're also electing judges. And you need to put judges that have family law experience and that are people experienced with family matters. Our judge was all he knew about was property damage and auto collisions. And so here he is trying to do it. And they're in cahoots too. You'll find the courts are corrupt because they don't fight for, they are pals with the public defenders, the social workers, the therapists. They go golfing, luncheons, and stuff like that. And it's like a cattle call because there's so many cases. It's standing room only in the hallways. There's very little space to sit. And families, I talked to numerous families there, and some of them were just coming to the United States. Some were, struggling financially and things like that. And there's this overwhelm and the sorrow on their faces was sad because they love their children. I didn't really meet the bad cases, the horror stories you hear about abuse by parents or neglect by parents. But I'm so now that you got your children back, you're married to your wife. Your wife, does she see her children that she had with her former husband?
That's a current ongoing custody battle. She gets to see them, but she's not regained full custody of them like we had before the CPS involvement.
Oh boy.
So one of the things is that if you follow the money under Title 4D, they get federal grants for every child in custody.
Right.
So under those federal grants, they get more money for what we call therapeutic foster care. And I can speak on this because I was in therapeutic foster care, which we have 5 levels. You've got your basic, your level 2, which is like therapeutic foster home. Your level 3 is like a group home. Level 4 is a heavily secured group home. And a level 5 is an institution. So if you get placed on, say, ADHD medicines, Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta, stuff like that, you get classed into a level 2 foster home. And they go from getting like $500 to $1,000 per month per child, and federal grants to $2,000 to $5,000 per month per child.
Yeah. The money thing is definitely the root of evil, and the problem is that there should be accountability for that money that goes out there, because there should be a way that they have to report every month what they spend it on, documented with receipts, and make sure it's used for the children, not for someone's new car or a new purse or a bonus. That's the sad part, because they are corrupt in the money making, because it's a billion dollar business. They make more money than social services does, which is sad because of the branch of social services. And social services, has a lot of money because they got to feed a lot of people, and with their immigrants, they got to feed the immigrants. And they got to take care of medically with the immigrants and put schools for those children that come with the immigrants. So we have a really taxing on social services, but then the CPS seems to be its own entity. There's no accountability. There's no watchdog. And we, as people like yourself and me, are speaking out about it, but there's no watchdog. We need to have a board or something that reviews them and their performance level and their use of money and so forth. It needs to be something along those lines. So I have a lot of things I'd like to see changed in CPS and have it do what it's supposed to do, supposed to protect their children and reunify families. And it should be unnecessary for foster care. There's nothing wrong with foster care, except foster care is being abused. And it's for families that don't have a mother and father. It's for children that don't. That's what Boys Town was all about. And my experience is that Boys Town was allowed to run a group home for the CPS in Orange County here. And they didn't last long because they underbid it, and that they were a different philosophy. They're for people that don't have parents. They taught the kids in the group home, including my children, not to show any love towards the parents. Keep your hands to your side. Don't hug your parents. And when you come for the visitation, you can't talk about anything in cases. It's like as soon as the children are abducted or stolen, I want to use that, Mark, because they never should be stolen or abducted. They are through deception. They are never hear what's going on, and you as parents are never hear what's going on. You as a wife and a husband or partners may talk to each other so you know a little bit, but there should be a weekly meeting where everybody sits down at a table, including the children involved. And I understand if they're real young, like babies and things like that. No, if it, they should maybe start at maybe the kindergarten level, because by that time they know what's going on. Any child who's 6 years old knows exactly what goes on in a family. They're not dummy. They watch enough TV and shows. They know exactly what's going on. They should be meeting once a week and transparent. Everybody needs to talk, and they can talk it out and say, these are the plans. These are what mom and dad's working on. This is how your children are being taken care of and so forth. And by all means, they should be with family members, not with shelters or group homes or foster care. Those should be the last resort. And as you just told, they have an escalation of money received. And this money thing has really gotten out of hand. And again, I know Vincent Davis wants to fight it, and he has, and with his lawsuit, he has won cases against CPS doing wrong. He has won cases with them doing wrong, and so now you're at the level now where, as a foster care child, you've told the audience here listening your story. You now are married to your wife, and you have your 3 children. Always left to trying to settle out is her involvement with her children. Is that right?
I actually haven't got to see them in 4 years since the original beginning of the case. Because of the allegations against me, I was not allowed to see them during the ongoing of the case, and because I wasn't Flood 10. And since then, there was multiple counties involved. The other county put in a protective order stating that I couldn't be around them, even though we had no interactions with that county, no case in that county or anything. But somehow they claimed jurisdiction, and they started entering orders and things that we wasn't allowed to be there to speak against.
Okay.
But she does. But foster care was originally designed for orphans. It was never designed to be, hey, we're going to come take your kid from you and you might get them back.
90
literally
seconds.
Only designed for orphans.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing is,
I agree with you.
There's no oversight. There's no oversight at the DSS level or at the judiciary level. We have no oversight over the judges whatsoever.
You're right. Those are really good points. And I would like you, we're going to run out of time because Blocktown shuts down before my show shuts down. But I hope you got something by telling your story and listening to what I had to say.
60 seconds.
And I hope that you continue to fight the people that have stolen your children, or stolen children that you like to have involvement with, because it's real important, like yourself, to keep at it and keep your heads up high and so forth. But I thank you very much for calling in, and good luck to you.
Well, if we have enough time, I'd like to say that it is the right of the people to redress your government. I was actually down in the chat. You highlighted a couple of my comments, even though you couldn't say my name out loud. That word is, while it's socially unacceptable, it is perfectly lawful and legal to redress your government however you feel appropriate.
Right. Understood. This block talk will cut off because it does not continue. They give me a countdown. I think they're down to 30 seconds. They're down to 10 seconds now. So you got 10 seconds left.
Fight your fight, redress your government, and never give up on your children, y'all.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I'm getting ready to conclude the show here. I want to give one last pitch for you that if you're involved in CPS, you need an attorney. And it's very, very important that you have someone that can advocate for you, that is professionally trained and experienced and in family law and so forth. And the person that fits that category that will fight for your children is Vincent Davis. Vincent W. Davis is a trial attorney. He's a family law professional attorney, done lots of cases and so forth. And it's very important. He offers a free 30-minute consultation and on strategies of how to fight CPS and how to win. The number to call in is 888-888-6582. That's my office. Say that Bob Pace told you call in, ask to schedule a time with Vincent Davis. Also, you can ask to be a speaker on the next show. I hope that the new year will be very successful and brings you much happiness. Again, this is Bob Pace signing off.